Emily was only 6 years old, but she had a curiosity and love for music that made her seem much older. From the very first moment she touched the piano, it was clear that something special was happening. She didn't just press the keys randomly like other children her age. She would tap the notes carefully, listening to each sound, smiling when the notes matched what she imagined in her mind. Her parents often watched her from the doorway, amazed at how focused and absorbed she could get with her small hands on the piano keys. Even at that young age, Emily had a sense of rhythm that seemed natural and effortless. She would sometimes hum along as she played, creating little melodies of her own. Her parents could not believe how quickly she picked up new songs and remembered every detail. At first, they thought it was just a phase, a fun hobby that she would grow out of. But soon, it became clear that music was more than just a pastime for her. It was something that brought her joy and made her light up in ways nothing else could. Emily's parents decided to enroll her in piano lessons with a local teacher who had experience teaching young children. The teacher, an older woman who had spent decades training talented students, was immediately struck by Emily's potential. Many children came and went, showing some skill or interest, but Emily was different. She listened carefully, repeated each exercise with patience, and always seemed eager to try something new. Her hands, small and delicate, moved over the keys with surprising confidence. The teacher knew that she had to nurture this talent carefully, helping Emily grow without overwhelming her. At first, Emily's lessons were short, just a few minutes at a time, but she was eager to extend them. She would practice the exercises at home, sometimes forgetting to eat or take breaks because she was so absorbed. Her favorite part of every lesson was when she could play a whole song from beginning to end. She loved the way the music could tell a story, how it could sound happy, sad, or playful depending on how she pressed the keys. Even when she made mistakes, she didn't get discouraged. Instead, she would try again and again until the song sounded just the way she wanted. Her parents noticed that Emily was not only learning fast but also developing her own style. She didn't just play the notes. She expressed something through the music. When she played a slow, soft piece, it was almost as if she was speaking without words, telling a story that could only be understood through sound. And when she played a fast, lively piece, it was impossible not to feel the energy and excitement in the room. Her music was not just correct, it was alive. One evening, Emily's parents were watching her practice a piece she had been learning for a few weeks. She sat on the piano bench, her small fingers moving swiftly across the keys. The piece was complex, with many twists and turns, but Emily handled it with a focus that amazed her parents. She didn't just play mechanically. She played with expression, pausing at just the right moments, adding little flourishes that made the music feel complete. When she finished, she looked up at her parents with a shy smile, proud of what she had accomplished. They clapped and cheered for her, telling her how wonderful she sounded. Emily's face lit up, her eyes sparkling with happiness. She loved seeing their reaction, but more than that, she loved the feeling of creating something beautiful on her own. Her teacher also noticed Emily's special gift and suggested that she might be ready to perform in front of an audience, even at her young age. The idea of performing made Emily nervous at first. She had never played for anyone outside her family or her teacher. What if she made a mistake? What if people laughed at her? Her parents reassured her, telling her that everyone gets nervous and that the important thing was to enjoy the music. They reminded her that she was talented and that sharing her music could bring happiness to others. Over the next few weeks, Emily prepared for her first small performance. She practiced diligently, focusing not only on the notes but also on how she would present herself. She learned to sit up straight, take a deep breath before starting, and imagine herself playing for friends who were excited to hear her. Her parents helped her stay calm, practicing together in their living room with just a few chairs set up to mimic an audience. Emily's confidence grew little by little. She realized that performing wasn't about being perfect. It was about sharing the music she loved. On the day of the performance, Emily woke up early, full of excitement and a little nervousness. She wore her favorite dress, a soft blue one that made her feel special. Her parents held her hand as they walked into the small community hall where the event was being held. Other children were performing as well, but Emily felt ready. When her turn came, she walked to the piano, her little heart beating fast. She took a deep breath, closed her eyes for a brief moment, and then began to play. The music flowed from her fingers naturally. The notes were soft and delicate at first, then grew in strength and confidence as she continued. The audience sat quietly, listening to the tiny girl who was playing with such skill and emotion. Emily was completely focused, her mind fully immersed in the music. She didn't notice the eyes on her, the cameras, or the whispers in the crowd. All that mattered was the piano, the keys beneath her fingers, and the melody she wanted to share. When she finished, there was a pause, a moment of silence as everyone absorbed what they had just heard. Then, the room erupted in applause. Emily looked up, her eyes wide with amazement, as people clapped and cheered for her. She felt proud, not because she had impressed them, but because she had done something she loved and shared it with others. Her parents rushed to hug her, tears of joy in their eyes. Her teacher smiled, nodding in approval, knowing that Emily had just taken an important first step in her musical journey. After that day, Emily continued to practice and improve, always eager to learn new songs and techniques. But she also began to dream bigger. She wanted to perform on bigger stages, for more people, and share the beauty of music with everyone. Her parents encouraged her dreams, supporting her in every way they could. Emily's journey had just begun, and it was clear to everyone around her that she had a rare talent and a passion that could take her far. Even at 6 years old, Emily understood that music was not just something to play. It was a way to connect, to express, and to inspire. And with each note she played, she was already making her mark on the world. After her first small performance, Emily's parents and teacher could see how much she loved playing in front of others. They decided it was time for her to prepare for something bigger. A local talent competition where many people, including professional musicians, would be watching. The idea excited Emily, but it also made her nervous. She had never performed on such a big stage before, and the thought of so many eyes watching her was intimidating. Her parents reassured her, telling her to focus on the music and enjoy the experience. They reminded her that being nervous was normal and that the audience wanted to hear her play, not to judge her. Emily began practicing a more complicated piece, Amélie Poulain, which required precision, timing, and emotional expression. Every day, she would sit at the piano, her small fingers moving carefully across the keys. She repeated each section over and over, paying attention to the rhythm and the subtle shifts in tone. She listened closely to recordings of the piece to understand how it should sound, but she also added her own touch, experimenting with the way she emphasized certain notes. Her teacher guided her, showing her small techniques to improve her posture, her hand movement, and the flow of the music. Emily listened carefully, absorbing every piece of advice and immediately practicing it at home. Practicing at home was a joyful routine for Emily. She would wake up early in the morning, eager to sit at the piano before breakfast. Her parents made her a small schedule, balancing practice with playtime and rest, but Emily often extended her practice longer than planned because she was so absorbed. She didn't see it as work. She saw it as an adventure, exploring every corner of the music and discovering how the song could come alive through her hands. Sometimes she would hum along, imagining herself in a concert hall, with the audience holding their breath as she played each note perfectly. Those moments made her feel brave and confident, even though she was just 6 years old. Her teacher noticed Emily's dedication and began preparing her for performance techniques. Playing a piece well in lessons was one thing, but performing for an audience required calmness, focus, and presence. Emily learned to take a deep breath before starting, to sit up straight, and to imagine that she was speaking to the audience through her music. Her teacher explained that music was a language of emotion and that every pause, every soft note, and every strong chord could tell a story. Emily listened intently, understanding that her performance was not only about hitting the right keys, but also about conveying feeling and capturing the listener's attention. At home, Emily's parents joined in the preparation. They acted as a small audience, sitting quietly while she played, clapping and smiling at the end. Sometimes, They would ask her how she felt about certain sections of the music or suggest small ways to improve, always making sure to encourage her rather than pressure her. Amélie appreciated their support and felt comforted by their presence. She began to understand that music was not just a solo activity. It was something that could connect people, make them feel emotions, and bring joy to others. This idea gave her even more motivation to practice and perfect her performance. As the competition day approached, Amélie began to imagine the event in her mind. She pictured the stage, the bright lights, and the judges watching her intently. At first, the thought made her anxious. What if she forgot a note? What if she played too fast or too slow? But her parents reminded her to focus on the music itself, not the reactions of others. They told her that mistakes were normal and that the beauty of music was in expressing herself, not in being perfect. Amélie practiced this mindset, taking deep breaths and imagining the audience as friends who wanted to enjoy her performance. Every day, Amélie's confidence grew. She started to notice the subtle improvements in her playing, the small adjustments that made the music sound smoother and more expressive. She learned how to control the tempo, how to emphasize the emotional parts of the song, and how to make each note flow naturally into the next. Her hands became more agile, her ears more sensitive to every sound, and her mind more focused on the story the music was telling. Even in moments when she struggled, she didn't give up. She would pause, breathe, and start again, learning patience and persistence along the way. Amélie also discovered the importance of visualization. Her teacher encouraged her to imagine herself playing confidently on the stage, seeing the audience enjoying every note, and feeling the music resonate throughout the room. She practiced this every day, closing her eyes and mentally performing the piece in front of a crowd. This helped her control her nerves and strengthened her connection to the music. Amélie realized that the performance was not just about skill but also about belief in herself and trust in the music she loved. The day before the competition, Amélie went through the piece from start to finish several times. She practiced with intensity but also allowed herself short breaks to play freely, experimenting with melodies and rhythms. Her parents noticed how determined she was and gave her words of encouragement, reminding her of how far she had come. They told her that no matter what happened the next day, they were proud of her for dedicating herself so fully and for sharing her love of music. Amélie felt a sense of pride and excitement, mixed with a little nervousness, knowing that tomorrow she would step onto a bigger stage than ever before. That night, Amélie went to bed early, her small fingers still tingling from the hours of practice. She dreamed of the piano, of the notes flowing like a river beneath her hands, and of the audience smiling and clapping as she played. Even in her dreams, she imagined herself playing with confidence, letting the music speak for her. When she woke up the next morning, she felt ready. She knew she had practiced hard, learned a lot, and prepared herself as best as she could. On the morning of the competition, Amélie dressed carefully in a simple yet elegant dress that made her feel proud. Her parents walked with her to the venue, offering calm words and reassurance. Amélie felt her heart beat faster as she saw the stage, the lights, and the people gathering to watch the performances. She took a deep breath, remembering everything she had practiced. The techniques, the visualization, the emotions behind each note. She reminded herself that she was ready to share her music and that her goal was to express herself, not to impress anyone. When it was finally her turn to perform, Amélie walked confidently to the piano, her hands slightly trembling but her mind focused. She sat on the bench, took a deep breath, and let her fingers find the keys. The first notes were soft and delicate, setting the tone for the entire piece. As she continued, her confidence grew. She played with precision, expression, and emotion, every note flowing naturally. The audience listened in silence, captivated by the tiny girl who seemed to command the piano with her heart more than her hands. Amélie was fully immersed in the music, her small body swaying slightly with the rhythm, her eyes closed at times to feel the melody fully. By the time she reached the final notes, the room was filled with awe. Amélie's performance had been flawless in skill and powerful in emotion. She felt a rush of pride and happiness as she lifted her hands from the keys. The silence that followed was brief but full of anticipation, and then the audience erupted in applause. Her parents rushed to her side, hugging her tightly, while her teacher smiled with tears in her eyes. Emily's heart swelled with joy, not because of the applause, but because she had shared her music and expressed herself in a way that touched others. She had grown not only as a pianist but as a person, learning confidence, patience, and the joy of creating something beautiful. From that day on, Emily's journey continued. She knew that there were bigger stages ahead, more songs to learn, and more people to inspire. But she also knew that the love for music and the dedication to her craft would guide her every step of the way. Even at 6 years old, Emily understood that true talent was not just about skill but about passion, persistence, and the courage to share your gift with the world. The morning of the competition arrived, and Emily woke up feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. She had practiced for weeks, preparing for this very moment, yet the thought of performing in front of so many people made her stomach flutter. Her parents gave her a warm breakfast and reminded her to take deep breaths and stay calm. They encouraged her to focus on the music, not on the audience or the judges. Emily nodded, trying to push away her worries, and carefully put on her favorite blue dress. It was simple, yet it made her feel confident and special. When they arrived at the competition venue, Emily's eyes widened. The hall was bigger than she had imagined, with rows of chairs stretching far back, lights hanging overhead, and a large stage at the front. Other children were practicing and warming up on different instruments, their parents watching closely. The atmosphere was full of excitement, chatter, and a little bit of tension. Emily held her parents' hands tightly as they found their seats, taking in everything around her. Her heart pounded, but she reminded herself that she had prepared for this moment and that the music was what mattered most. Backstage, Emily met a few of the other young performers. Some were older, some younger, but all seemed eager and a little nervous, just like her. She smiled politely, trying to calm herself by thinking of them as friends rather than competitors. Her teacher was there too, giving her last-minute advice and encouragement. "Remember, Emily," her teacher said gently, "this is about sharing your music and expressing yourself. Focus on the story the music is telling. Everything else will fall into place." Emily nodded, taking a few deep breaths and feeling her nerves slowly settle. She repeated to herself, "I can do this. I am ready." The host announced the beginning of the competition, and Emily listened as the other children performed their pieces. Some played with confidence, some stumbled a little, but all were brave to be on stage. Emily watched closely, learning from them, noticing how they held themselves and how they connected with the audience. Each performance reminded her that every musician had their own journey, and mistakes were a natural part of learning. When she heard the applause for the previous performer, she imagined that same sound would soon be for her, and it gave her courage. Finally, it was Emily's turn. Her parents gave her a reassuring smile, and her teacher whispered, "You're ready. Go show them your music." Emily stood up, her small hands trembling slightly, and walked to the piano. The stage felt huge under her feet, and the bright lights made her squint for a moment. She took a deep breath, sat down at the piano bench, and positioned her fingers on the keys. Closing her eyes briefly, she imagined herself performing flawlessly, the music flowing from her heart to her hands. She could hear the melody in her mind and felt the rhythm settle into her body. It was time to let the music speak. The first notes came softly, delicate, and precise. Emily focused on each key, feeling the vibrations through her fingers. The audience grew quiet, listening intently as the tiny girl played with skill far beyond her years. Her hands moved with a grace and confidence that seemed almost magical. Each chord, each pause, and each note told a part of the story. Emily was completely immersed in the music, unaware of the eyes watching her, the cameras recording, or the whispers of amazement from the audience. All that mattered was the melody, the emotion, and the connection she felt with the piano. As the piece progressed, Emily's confidence grew. She allowed herself to express more through the dynamics of the music, playing softly in some parts and louder in others, emphasizing the emotions she wanted to convey. Her small body swayed slightly with the rhythm, her face showing concentration and passion. The audience leaned forward, captivated by her performance. The judges, experienced musicians themselves, watched in silence, impressed by the young girl's ability to command the piano with such maturity and feeling. Amelie's teacher, standing at the side, felt a swell of pride, knowing that all the hard work, practice, and patience had led to this moment. Amelie's fingers danced across the keys, moving swiftly and accurately through the challenging passages of the piece. Every note was clear and precise, yet filled with expression. She had spent so many hours practicing these sections that they felt like second nature, yet she added subtle personal touches that made the performance uniquely hers. She remembered her teacher's advice. The music was a story, and she was the storyteller. She played not just with skill but with heart, letting the audience feel the emotion behind each phrase. Halfway through, Amélie encountered a particularly tricky part, where the notes moved quickly and required both speed and accuracy. Her fingers glided over the keys with practiced ease, each movement fluid and controlled. For a brief moment, time seemed to slow as she concentrated fully, feeling the music flow through her. She didn't panic or hesitate. She trusted her preparation and let the melody guide her. The audience held their breath, mesmerized by her talent and composure. Even the judges exchanged looks of surprise, clearly impressed by the skill and poise of such a young performer. As she approached the final section, Amélie felt a rush of energy. Her excitement and joy for playing music took over, and she poured every bit of emotion into the concluding notes. Her hands moved with confidence, the music swelling and then softly fading, like a story reaching its end. When the last note lingered in the air, Amélie lifted her hands and waited, her heart beating fast. The room was silent for a brief moment, as if everyone was absorbing the beauty of what they had just heard. Then, the audience erupted into applause, cheering and clapping with admiration. Amelie's eyes widened in amazement. She had done it. She had shared her music, told her story, and captivated everyone in the room. Her parents rushed forward, hugging her tightly, their eyes filled with tears of pride and happiness. Her teacher smiled, beaming with joy, proud of Amelie's accomplishment. The judges were still applauding, impressed by the young girl who had performed with such confidence, precision, and emotional depth. Comments like, extraordinary, beyond her years, and truly remarkable, could be heard whispered among the audience. Amélie felt a wave of pride and relief, realizing that all her hard work and practice had paid off. She had faced her fears, performed on a big stage, and shared her love for music with the world. After the performance, Amélie was congratulated by other participants, audience members, and even the judges. They praised not only her technical skill but also the feeling and emotion she had brought to the music. Amélie smiled shyly, thanking them politely. She realized that the applause and praise were wonderful, but what mattered most to her was the joy she felt while playing and the connection she had made with the audience. Her parents reminded her that this was just the beginning and that her journey as a musician would continue with even more opportunities and experiences ahead. That night, back at home, Amélie replayed the performance in her mind. She thought about the moments when she had felt nervous and how she had overcome them. She remembered the thrill of the audience's reaction, the smiles, the claps, and the warmth she felt from sharing something she loved. Her parents praised her once again, telling her how proud they were and how her music had touched the hearts of so many people. Amélie felt a deep sense of accomplishment and happiness, knowing that her passion for music had brought joy to others and that she had grown stronger and more confident through the experience. Amélie went to bed that night feeling inspired and excited for the future. She dreamed of more stages, more audiences, and more music to play. She understood that while talent was important, dedication, practice, and courage were equally crucial. Amélie had learned that performing was not just about playing the right notes. It was about expressing herself, connecting with people, and sharing her love of music. And as she drifted off to sleep, she felt ready to continue her journey, eager to see where her music would take her next. Amélie's hands hovered over the piano keys, and a quiet focus filled the room. The bright lights of the stage seemed almost blinding at first, but she reminded herself to breathe and let the music flow. She could hear the faint murmurs of the audience, the shuffling of feet, and the rustling of programs, but she blocked it out. This was her moment, and she would give the piece everything she had. The first notes were soft, gentle, almost like a whisper, and Amélie felt a surge of calm as the music began to take shape under her fingers. Each key spoke a tiny story, and she guided it carefully, letting it unfold naturally. As she continued, Amélie began to feel the music inside her. Her small body moved slightly with the rhythm, her fingers dancing across the keys with a combination of precision and expression that seemed impossible for someone her age. She thought about the story she wanted to tell, imagining each note as a character, each chord as a scene. The audience was silent, captivated by the delicate sounds, not daring to make a noise and disturb the tiny girl who was creating something magical. Amélie didn't notice the eyes on her. She was fully immersed in the music, feeling it in every part of her. Halfway through the piece, Amélie reached a part that was fast and complicated. Her fingers flew over the keys, moving in perfect coordination, each note crisp and clear. She had practiced this section countless times, but now it felt effortless. She closed her eyes for a brief moment, letting herself feel the rhythm and the melody, and when she opened them, she saw the audience leaning forward, mesmerized. Even the judges, who had seen many performers, seemed stunned by the skill and confidence of such a young girl. Amélie's teacher, standing quietly at the side, smiled with pride, knowing that all the hard work had prepared her for this moment. The middle of the piece required both softness and strength, and Amélie carefully adjusted her touch. She pressed some keys lightly, almost whispering through the piano, and others more firmly, letting the sound swell and resonate through the hall. She thought about how each change in volume would make the audience feel, imagining the emotions she wanted them to experience. The music became more than just notes. It became a conversation, a story, a message that she shared with everyone listening. She felt a deep connection to the piano, as if it were an extension of herself, responding to every thought and feeling she had. Amélie's small hands moved rapidly across the keys, yet each note was deliberate and expressive. She thought about all the hours she had spent practicing, the moments when she had struggled and wanted to give up, and she realized that those moments had prepared her for this. Every challenge had taught her patience and focus, and now she could see the result. The music flowed naturally, effortlessly, carrying the audience along with it. Some people in the crowd had tears in their eyes, moved by the beauty and emotion of the performance. Amélie could sense it, even without seeing, because the energy in the room felt alive and powerful. As she approached the final section, Amélie felt her heart swell with excitement and joy. She poured every bit of energy and emotion she had into the concluding notes. Her fingers flew over the keys with precision, yet there was a softness to her touch that made the music feel alive. The melody rose and fell, each note carefully shaped, leading to a gentle, lingering finish. She paused for a brief moment after the last chord, letting it resonate in the hall, and then lifted her hands from the keys. The silence that followed was thick, almost as if time had stopped. Everyone was holding their breath, taking in the tiny girl who had created such a powerful moment with her music. Then the applause began. It started slowly, a few hands clapping here and there, and then grew into a wave of sound that filled the room. People stood up, cheering, some wiping tears from their eyes, others smiling with amazement. Amélie looked up, her own eyes wide with wonder. She had done it. She had shared her music and touched the hearts of everyone listening. Her parents rushed forward, embracing her tightly, their faces full of pride and joy. Her teacher's eyes sparkled with happiness, knowing that Amélie had performed beyond anyone's expectations. The judges were still applauding, clearly impressed by the performance. They whispered among themselves, amazed at the talent and maturity displayed by such a young child. One judge leaned forward and wrote a note, likely about how extraordinary Amélie's playing had been. The audience continued clapping, many giving standing ovations, and Amélie felt a mix of relief, pride, and happiness. She realized that all her practice, patience, and hard work had led to this moment. More importantly, she had shared something she loved with others, and that made her heart soar. After the performance, Emily was congratulated by other participants and audience members. People told her how beautiful her music was, how expressive and mature it sounded, and how inspired they felt. Emily smiled shyly, thanking them politely. She felt proud, but not boastful. She understood that her gift was something to share, not just to show off. Her parents reminded her that this was just one step in her journey, and that there were many more opportunities to play and inspire others. Emily nodded, feeling excited about the future and motivated to continue learning and growing. Backstage, Emily's teacher gave her a warm hug and whispered, "You were amazing. Remember this feeling and let it guide you in every performance." Emily smiled, feeling the truth in those words. She knew that performing was not just about hitting the right notes. It was about connecting with people, telling a story, and sharing emotion. That night, as she lay in bed, she replayed the performance in her mind. She thought about the first notes, the tricky passages, the swells of emotion, and the final chord. She felt proud of herself and grateful for all the support she had received from her parents and teacher. Emily realized that performing on stage was not only about music but also about courage. She had faced her fears, stepped into the spotlight, and given her best. She understood that being brave and sharing her passion was as important as practicing the notes. Even though she was only 6 years old, Emily felt a deep sense of accomplishment and confidence. She knew that the journey ahead would have more challenges, but she also knew that with dedication and love for music, she could face anything. In the days following the competition, Emily's performance continued to inspire people. Her parents showed her videos and messages from friends and family who had watched her play. People commented on her skill, her emotion, and the joy she brought through music. Emily felt happy, but she stayed humble, focusing on her next lessons and the new pieces she wanted to learn. She knew that talent was only part of the journey. Hard work, practice, and a love for what she did would take her far. Emily's experience on stage taught her valuable lessons. She learned that preparation and practice were important, but so was believing in herself and trusting her abilities. She discovered the joy of sharing her music with others and the power of expressing feelings through sound. Every performance, she realized, was a chance to connect with people, tell a story, and inspire. And she was only 6 years old, with a lifetime of music and performances ahead of her. Emily felt a sense of excitement for the future, knowing that this was just the beginning of a journey filled with melody, emotion, and endless possibilities. After Emily's performance, the hall was buzzing with excitement. People continued to talk about the young girl who had played with such emotion and skill. Parents and audience members complimented her. Strangers approached her to say how impressed they were, and even the other children performers looked at her with awe. Emily stood quietly, taking it all in, her small hands still tingling from playing. She felt a mix of happiness, pride, and disbelief. It was hard to understand how everyone had reacted so positively, but the warmth and admiration made her heart swell. Her parents hugged her tightly, whispering words of encouragement and pride. "You did wonderfully," they said. "We are so proud of you." Emily smiled shyly, feeling a joy that went beyond words. Her teacher guided her backstage, praising her performance and pointing out the subtle improvements she had made. "You played beautifully," the teacher said. "Not just the notes, but the story, the emotion. You touched everyone in this room." Emily nodded, feeling proud but also realizing there was so much more she could learn. Her teacher encouraged her to continue practicing, to explore new pieces, and to keep nurturing her love for music. Emily understood that this was a milestone, not the end, and she felt a renewed determination to grow as a musician. After the event, Emily's parents decided to celebrate her achievement in a quiet, meaningful way. They took her to a small park, where they sat on a bench overlooking the garden. Emily shared her excitement about the applause and how wonderful it felt to play for so many people. Her parents listened attentively, telling her stories about famous musicians who had started small but practiced diligently to become great. Emily felt inspired, realizing that she, too, could continue this journey with patience, effort, and dedication. She understood that talent alone was not enough. Practice, discipline, and love for music were equally important. The next few days were filled with conversations and messages from people who had watched her performance. Friends of the family, neighbors, and even people they didn't know reached out to say how impressed they were with Amelie's skill and confidence. Amélie read the kind words, feeling both happy and a little shy. She didn't fully understand why so many people admired her, but she realized that her music had made a difference, even if small, in how people felt. Her parents reminded her that this was a gift, a way to bring joy, and that it was her responsibility to keep nurturing it. Amélie continued to practice every day, but now with a renewed sense of purpose. She no longer played just for herself. She played with the idea that her music could inspire others, make them happy, or even calm them. She experimented with new melodies, tried to express different emotions, and learned to interpret music in her own unique way. Sometimes she would play slowly and softly, imagining a peaceful garden, or quickly and brightly, imagining the excitement of a sunny day. Her parents watched with delight, seeing how much her imagination and creativity had grown alongside her technical skills. Her teacher encouraged her to enter more competitions, not for the sake of winning, but to gain experience and confidence. Amélie felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness at the thought of performing again. Each competition was a chance to meet new people, share her music, and learn from others. She began to understand that performing was not just about showing skill. It was about connecting with people and telling a story through the piano. Amélie found herself thinking about how she could make each performance more expressive, how she could convey feelings without words, and how she could inspire her audience. At home, Amélie's parents supported her by creating a comfortable space for practice. They moved the piano near a window, allowing sunlight to fall on the keys, and set up a small chair for her teacher when lessons occurred. They listened to her play, offering gentle advice, celebrating her successes, and encouraging her when she struggled. Amélie felt their support in every note she played. It wasn't just the technical guidance that mattered. It was the love, encouragement, and belief in her that made her confident. She began to understand that music was more than just sound. It was a way to express herself, communicate with others, and bring joy into the world. Amélie also began to notice her own growth. She could play more complex pieces with ease, her fingers more agile, her memory stronger, and her sense of timing more accurate. She took pride in the little improvements, whether it was a challenging chord that once troubled her or a subtle emotional expression she learned to add. Each accomplishment reinforced her confidence and inspired her to continue practicing. Amélie realized that dedication and consistent effort were just as important as natural talent. She felt a growing sense of responsibility to take care of her abilities and make the most of her opportunities. One afternoon, Amélie's parents received an invitation for her to perform at a small local concert. They were thrilled and explained the opportunity to Amélie, who felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. She remembered the competition, the thrill of the applause, and the feeling of sharing music with an audience. She wanted to experience that again and show how much she had improved. Her parents assured her that they would be with her every step, offering comfort and encouragement. Amélie spent the next few days practicing diligently, focusing on the expression, rhythm, and flow of the piece she would play. When the day of the concert arrived, Amélie felt a familiar flutter in her stomach. She wore a simple dress that made her feel confident and graceful. Backstage, she met other performers, some older and some younger, each preparing for their moment on stage. Amélie focused on the music and took deep breaths, reminding herself of everything she had practiced. Her parents held her hands for reassurance, whispering, "You've got this. Play from your heart." Amélie nodded, feeling ready. She approached the stage, her small hands steady as she sat at the piano. Once she began playing, Amélie felt the music flow through her naturally. The notes were clear and expressive, carrying emotion and telling a story. She was focused, fully immersed, and aware of every sound. The audience listened in awe, captivated by the tiny girl who played with such depth and feeling. Emily could see smiles, hear soft murmurs of admiration, and feel the energy in the room responding to her music. Her performance was not about perfection but about expression, and the audience could sense her sincerity and passion. The applause at the end was enthusiastic, warm, and heartfelt. Emily felt proud and happy, knowing that her music had touched others once again. After the concert, Emily's parents celebrated her performance with a quiet dinner at home, sharing stories of the day and praising her courage and skill. Emily reflected on how far she had come, realizing that each experience, each performance, and each practice session had taught her something new. She had learned patience, focus, confidence, and the power of sharing her passion. Even as a young child, Emily understood that music was a journey, one that required dedication, love, and the courage to face challenges. She felt inspired to continue learning, practicing, and performing, knowing that her music could bring joy, emotion, and inspiration to anyone who listened. This was not the end of her story. It was only the beginning, and Emily was ready for all the opportunities and adventures that lay ahead. After the excitement of the concert and the applause that seemed endless, Emily felt a quiet sense of fulfillment. She understood that music was not just about performing for others but about the feelings it evoked in herself and those who listened. Each day, she practiced with a renewed purpose, exploring new pieces and learning new techniques. Her fingers moved more confidently across the piano keys. Her ears became more attuned to subtle tones, and her heart connected more deeply with every note she played. Emily began to realize that every song she learned was a new story she could tell, a new journey she could take the audience on. Emily's parents noticed her dedication and encouraged her to dream bigger. They reminded her that while she was already talented, the most important thing was to continue learning, growing, and sharing her music. They suggested she participate in more local events, collaborate with other young musicians, and maybe even record some of her performances to share with friends and family. Emily's eyes lit up at the idea. She felt proud of how far she had come and excited about the possibilities ahead. Her love for music had grown stronger, and she realized that her piano was not just an instrument but a companion that would always help her express herself. At school, Emily became an inspiration to her classmates. Many children admired her dedication, and some even asked if they could learn piano from her teacher. Emily humbly shared her experiences, explaining that practice, patience, and enjoying the process were the most important parts. She didn't boast about her talent. Instead, she encouraged others to find their own passion and work hard at it. Teachers noticed how Emily's confidence and enthusiasm positively affected her peers. Her story became a quiet lesson about dedication, courage, and the joy of pursuing something meaningful, even at a young age. Emily's performances began to gain attention beyond her local community. Videos of her playing started circulating among family friends and local music groups. People were amazed at her skill, the emotional depth she brought to each piece, and the way she seemed to understand music beyond her years. Messages of admiration and encouragement poured in. Emily read them carefully, feeling inspired but also determined to stay humble and continue improving. She knew that praise was nice, but it was her love for music and the desire to express herself that truly mattered. Over time, Emily began to develop her own style. While she learned from recordings and teachers, she also experimented with melodies, rhythms, and dynamics. She tried to make each piece her own, adding small touches that reflected her personality and emotions. Her teacher encouraged this exploration, explaining that creativity was just as important as technical skill. Emily discovered the joy of creating, of taking a known song and bringing it to life in her unique way. She realized that music was not just about following notes. It was about communicating feelings and telling stories through sound. Emily's parents continued to support her growth. They attended every performance, helped her prepare for competitions, and encouraged her to balance practice with rest and play. They reminded her that success was not just about applause or recognition, but about personal growth and the joy of pursuing something she loved. Emily felt grateful for their support, understanding that it gave her the confidence to explore, make mistakes, and keep improving. She knew that their encouragement was as important as any lesson or practice session. Amélie also learned important lessons about patience and resilience. Not every practice session went perfectly. Some days, she struggled with a difficult passage or couldn't get a piece to sound right. But instead of giving up, she learned to take a deep breath, break the music into smaller sections, and practice each part carefully. She realized that persistence was key, and that challenges were opportunities to learn and grow. Each time she overcame a difficulty, she felt stronger and more confident in her abilities. As Amélie's confidence grew, she began performing for different audiences. She played at school events, local community gatherings, and small music festivals. Each performance taught her something new: how to connect with different audiences, how to manage stage nerves, and how to convey emotions through music. She learned to enjoy the moment, to take in the energy of the audience, and to let the music guide her. The joy she felt while performing was contagious, and audiences often remarked on how moved they were by the little girl who played with such depth and feeling. Through all these experiences, Amélie remained humble and focused. She understood that talent was just the beginning, and that dedication, love, and perseverance were what truly made a musician. She continued to study new pieces, challenge herself, and explore different musical styles. Each day was a new opportunity to learn something, improve a skill, or discover a new way to express herself. Amélie's journey was not just about becoming a great pianist, but about growing as a person and finding joy and purpose in her passion. Looking back, Amélie realized how much she had grown since the first time she performed in front of an audience. She had faced nerves, worked through difficult passages, and learned to express herself fully through music. She had discovered the power of connecting with people through art, the joy of hard work, and the importance of perseverance. Even at 6 years old, she understood lessons that many adults take years to learn. Music had become more than a hobby, it was a part of who she was. Amélie's story inspired not only her peers, but also adults who saw her perform. They admired her dedication, her courage, and the beauty of her music. Her performances reminded people of the power of passion, of the importance of nurturing talent, and of the joy that comes from sharing one's gifts with the world. Amélie knew that she wanted to continue playing, learning, and inspiring others, and she felt grateful for every opportunity that allowed her to do so. In the evenings, after practice and school, Amélie would sit quietly at her piano, reflecting on her day. She would play softly, exploring new melodies or revisiting old favorites. Sometimes she played for her parents, who listened with admiration, and sometimes she played just for herself, enjoying the sound and the feeling it gave her. Amélie realized that music was a lifelong journey, one filled with challenges, discoveries, and endless joy. She felt a sense of excitement for the future, knowing that every performance, every practice session, and every note played was a step forward. Amélie's journey was a testament to what could be achieved with love, dedication, and courage. She had started as a small, nervous girl unsure of herself, and through practice, support, and perseverance, she had become a confident, expressive musician. She had learned that music was not just about playing notes correctly, but about expressing emotions, connecting with others, and finding joy in the process. And though she was only 6 years old, Amélie had already begun a path that would shape her life, inspire others, and show the world the power of passion and determination.